Welcome back, my ghouls and ghouls and goblins and flesh terror fans, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where in this spooky Halloween season I will be painting, of course, the terrifying, the ruthless Flesh Terrors chapter. So, without further ado, let's grab our grisly, blood-stained paints and brushes and any chain weapons that we fancy, and let's carve straight into it. But before we can rip and tear straight into this video, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I have used in this video today, alongside which we will need a nice chunky brush, a disheveled fluffy brush, and a teeny weeny teeny tiny brush for all of those spooky teeny tiny places. So we'll start out with applying a black acrylic primer all over the model, just to give us a good base start. Then we're going to start out with some of the Screamer Pink. Now, I was going to be using my Corn Red, as it's much closer to the sort of normal base colour of the Flesh Terrors. However, I opened it, and upon my horror, it was pretty well dried up. So we're going to start out with this first of all, because the red is more of a sort of like a dark kind of purpley red. So with this, it may look a little bit on the pink side, but not to worry, because we can go over it in the red just to bring it back up to the colour that you would expect. We'll also add a little bit of this black just to mix into the Screamer Pink, and this will be great for doing sort of the places where the light's not really going to be touching it much. So like the kind of inside of the legs, just to kind of blend it in and give us a nice contrast. Afterwards, your miniature should look a little something like this, so it's much more sort of like a purpley red than it is natural red, but then that's the base layer done for now. Now we're going to move on to adding in some red. So I've got some of this lovely, delightful Mephiston red. I'm just going to grab a little bit of this because red is a very strong colour, and I'm going to mix that with Screamer Pink. So we have a bit of a 50-50-ish mix. And thinning down with a little water, we're just going to start to go over and make this armour really stand out. So with that step done, what we're going to do is we're going to add in more and more of our lovely Mephiston red, and then just kind of wet blend our way up. And as well, if it does look like it's going to be a bit too bright, then always just add in a little dot of Abaddon Black into your mixture just to dull it back down, just so then you're using the right sort of shade that works for you. And again, swap out, you don't have to use a big brush like I have. You can swap out to a smaller brush, whichever you find most comfortable to use. So finally for the armour, I'm adding in a lot more of the Mephiston red into the mixture, and then I'm just going to go around and just pick out a few areas just to show off a little bit of highlighting. Now you can highlight the entirety if you'd like, if that's your sort of style, but I'm just going to pick out just a couple of areas just to show off where the light's kind of striking it. So we can now safely say that the red armour is complete. You can always add in some battle damage if you like, just using the same paint colour as you used to do the highlights. So we're going to do the black areas now, and we're going to grab our Abaddon Black, and we're going to grab some of this Incubi Darkness, and we're going to make probably a 60-40-ish mix, and then we're going to thin it down with a bit of water, just so we get a nice smooth application, and we will go over the armour panels. So after the first application, we're just going to introduce even more Incubi Darkness. And what I should have said during the previous step is that we want to be covering the majority of the armour. Eventually we're going to be working in a much smaller area as we get to some of the final blends. And this kind of wet blending technique is absolutely fantastic. You can achieve similar results via dry brushing, but this way is a lot more accurate. You can get some fantastic results. So now that the wet blending process is done on the black areas, I'm just going to grab a little bit of the Storm Vermin fur and mix it into our mixture of Abaddon Black and Incubi Darkness. Just going to grab a little bit more of each, and then we're just going to do a little bit of highlighting, just purely picking out just a couple of little areas. Now that the black armour is complete, I'm going to move away from the Incubi Darkness. I'm going to mix up just the Storm Vermin fur and Abaddon Black to make a very dark grey. And then what we'll do is that we're going to go over the black parts of the weapons. And then, much the same as all of the stages so far, we're going to be introducing more and more of the lighter shade until we reach a point where we are happy enough with to apply a highlight. And with the weapons, you don't have to be as neat as we have been with the rest of the armour. Again, it depends on what style you're going for. I have seen people use teeny tiny bits of sponges, to apply sort of lighter shades over the top, and that gives a really lovely sort of worn and gritty texture. So if you have any like spare marines or models, then just have a little play around with. Have a little experiment, and if it doesn't work out, then it's fine, because it was only a tester, and you can always just strip the paint back and try something else. Alright, so the black armour's done, the red armour's done. Now we're going to go over and use some of this lovely Iron Warriors steel. And we're going to use a bit of a knackered old brush, wipe off the majority, and then we're just going to pick out all of the metal areas. So just a couple of final things I'm going to be doing is the purity seal, and then I'm going to do the eyes. So I'm just going to grab a smaller brush, and then using this Corax white sort of base colour, I'm just going to apply it over here. Now with the base versus like the layer paints that Citadel use, is that these tend to be thicker. So that means that you can apply them over darker colours, and you won't need as many layers as you would do with the layer paint. So we'll leave that to dry. And I just remembered, we're going to be doing the belt and his other accessories. So let's crack on with that, shall we? We're going to need Mornfang brown and a bit of black. starting out with the darker brown first, and then we're going to build up our colours again, just like with the rest of the miniature. So now that the purity seal is dry and we've done all the leather work, so I'm just going to use some of the leftover Mornfang brown, going to wash it down, and we're just going to apply it over the purity seal. We can, of course, use like Agrax Earthshade or one of the contrast paints at the top, but I just figured, well, I've got some spare bits there, I'm going to use it. Plus, you know, this isn't going to be a Golden Demon or any kind of painting competition entry, so why not just utilise what I've got here. Now the purity seal. So we're going to go with a matching colour to his eye lenses. So we're going to go with some moot green, and then we are going to want to grab a darker green, this Caliban green. I want a tiny bit of each, going within a 50-50 mix, and then just paint it straight all over. Then using pure moot green, I'm just going to pick out just a few of the outer areas, just as a little highlight, and then a little bit just in the middle there. So what we've got are greens, and the only thing really left to do is the eye lenses. So I just tidied up the eye lenses from earlier, from the grey highlights, and just to get it back to a nice black. And then we're going to mix up a little bit of the Calibanite green and the moot green, just like with the purity seal, and using our fine detail brush, we're just going to paint probably about 2/3 of the lens. And we want to keep a little bit at the back black, because this is going to increase our contrast as much as possible, so then when we come around to putting in the little reflection light at the back, it's going to pop that a little bit more. And then we're going to just slowly add in more and more moot green into our mixture, before we finally end up with pure moot green at the very end of the eye lens. And then we'll pop in a little bit of black at the back. Now we can always put in a little bit of a lens glow, which I might have a little play around with now while we're at it. So it's going to darken that green down. And then we're going to run just a little bit, just underneath the eye. A little bit too much on that side. So I'm just going to take some of the black and then just tidy that up under there. And then what we'll do, we'll take a little bit more of our previous mixture, so the one with more of the moot green, and we're just going to put in a thin, very thin line. Just underneath. And you don't want to use the brightest green underneath the eyes, because then that's going to sort of take away from the actual eye lens itself. So that looks pretty good. And now finally for that teeny tiny bit of moot green at the end. And now we're just going to add in a teeny tiny white dot just at the back of the lens. So around about... No, that's too big. And on there. You'll always find that whenever you're painting in lenses, one turns out perfect, the other one is a little bit on the derpy side, but luckily we can rectify it just a little bit. So I'm gonna, last thing before I move on to the logo, I'm just gonna put in a couple of little squiggles So now I'm going to freehand, or rather attempt to freehand, the logo. So I'm going to speed it up and wish me luck. And so this is how I went about painting the grim flesh tearers for your Space Marine chapters. I really hope that you all have enjoyed this painting tutorial, and if you did, then do show your appreciation by leaving a like and comment down below which part was your favourite. Do you collect flesh tearers, and was this worthwhile for you? If you're new, a subscribe would be hugely appreciated, and if you wanted to support me any further, there is an affiliate link down below for Wayland Games where you can pick up some more reinforcements for your grisly chapters, or any other sort of foul, demonic, chaotic, or Xenos factions that you would like to collect. And of course there will be stills and reels of this miniature over at my Instagram page at Lynch Paints. If you have used this tutorial at any point, then do let me know, send me a message over there with your progress, because I'd love to see how everyone responds and uses my tutorials. And if you want to support me a little bit further, then I do have a link for my Ko-fi page down below in the description as well. So without further ado, stay safe, stay spooky, and we'll see you all next time.